Today we are going to talk about digital manufacturing, how we can add in our current manufacturing process and all. So some of the things we are just going to cover up. We are going to talk about Industry 4.0, and then we will take you through some case studies and all. Before we start into the technology and all, I would like to tell you about our company. Basically, we are a public limited company. Redington is a public limited company with last year turnover was around 51,000 crore. Basically, we are a distribution company. We have got around 40,000 distribute dealers with us who are promoting our products with different channels actually. If you look at what kind of portfolio we are carrying, we have what are almost 250 product lines, which include Apple, HP, Dell, Lenovo, and a lot of other engineering products, software, and all. We are having this. And if you look at our presence in India, we have got almost 80 plus offices all across the country. All major locations must be having at least one or two offices. Okay. Me and Vinod comes from a business called 3D Business Unit, wherein what we do, we talk about 3D only. We talk about 3D digital manufacturing and all. So in which we have got HP has got a portfolio of 3D printing. Even though HP has got a big range of product lines, we are taking care of 3D printing and a few more product lines. Then we have got Carl Zeiss 3D scanning, 3D CT scanning and all. We are promoting in India them. Apart from this, we have got a part production center because there are many organizations, smaller organizations in the country who cannot afford to have a in-house facility. So they must be getting at least some kind of services from somewhere. Since we are promoting the latest technology, so we thought why not to give a kind of exposure to the industry with a new technology. And we have got a good success under this Visualize. Now I'll take you through the concepts. So when we say additive manufacturing, so there are different terminologies. Somebody says 3D printing, somebody says rapid prototyping, somebody says additive manufacturing. So it is almost same. Exactly, it is same because it is producing the parts layer by layer. Always, every 3D printing is known for layer by layer producing. Okay. Here, if we just go into the 3D printing history, basically in 1986, there was Mr. Charles Hull. He has basically invented this SLA technology, which is very popular in the market. But it has got certain limitations also that we will discuss in the later part. So it is started in 1986, and from there we have got different revolutions in the market. If you look at, so from 1986 to 2009, that was the time where people were not even thinking of having the prototyping. I mean, beyond the prototyping, it was the phase basically where 3D printing was used as a kind of prototyping only. Now we have got the another area also where we talk about the production. So there are two areas. One is production, I mean, design side. The other one is production side. So when we talk about the production side, nobody was able to even think over like how we can take it into the next level. So from 2014 onwards, people have started thinking about like why not to use our technology into different areas beyond prototyping also. So now in 2017, HP has come into the market with a technology called HP MJF technology, multi-jet fusion. So we are going to cover up all these technologies in our coming slides. Yeah, these are the known technologies: SLA, FDM, CJP, SLS, MJP, Polyjet, multi-jet fusion technology. This is the newest one. And DMP. On the right hand side, you can see DMP, EOS, concept laser. These are the metal. First two columns are for plastic, and the last one is basically for the metal 3D printers. So one by one, we will just cover up the technologies if you are new to the technology, new to the 3D printing. Basically, there are two categories. One is powder based, the other one is non-powder based. So here we are going to talk only two technologies which are on non-powder based. FDM technology. FDM technology, you must have a lot of people. I mean, participants must have seen this technology because it is available in almost all the institutions, organization. It is low end basically. So here extrusion of material happens. So material is in the form of spool, and it is basically extruded with the help of your tips and all. So depending on what kind of material you are using, the temperature is applied and it is fused and made the part as per the requirement. Now it comes to SLA. SLA is basically the laser-based system. The material is in it's thermoset plastic, which is normally in epoxy material. Okay, so there is a tank of material, filled material, and there's a tray. You are just with the help of laser, you're sintering and you are making the parts layer by layer. So that's the process of SLA. After this, it comes to powder-based. Powder-based has got basically two technologies. Primarily, two technologies are there. One is called SLS, which is very prominent technology for a number of years in the market, and one technology which has come from HP, that is called multi-jet fusion. So what is the advantage of this powder-based and over non-powder based? Basically, it doesn't require any support structure. In case of FDM, SLA, you need to have a support structure inside. Here it is not required. SLS and multi-jet fusion technology uses real thermoplastic, which is used by the industry for their end-use parts and all. Here, you have got the advantage, one more advantage. You can do horizontal and vertical stacking. What I meant to say is, say, for example, you want to print 100 parts in one go, you can print, which is not possible in any of the technologies except these two. So here we can have more productive, we can have better, strong parts and more number of parts. And wastage is very less. When we are saying no support structure required, means there is no wastage of material. Okay. Here, SLS, if I elaborate SLS, here in this video, you can see on the left hand side, powder is there. On the center, it's a powder bed where you have to make the part manufacturing. And on the right, it is the empty one. So it is basically now it is laser. Are you able to see the video now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay. So basically, the center part is the build area where material is to be built. So here, if you look at one layer is coming with the help of ruler, the material comes in. Okay. So layer by layer, the part is manufactured. Here, what happens is we are using SLS, this laser. I think some noise is coming from the back. Hello. Yeah, here we use the laser beam for melting the material. Okay. Next is basically multi-jet fusion technology, which is from HP. Here it is slightly different than SLS, but there are a lot of advantages here. So HP has come up with two platforms. One is called production system. The other one is crossover solution. The production system is meant for the people who have got very high volumes. So for example, tomorrow in your university, you put up an incubation center. Incubation center, say for example, incubation center has to cater number of companies all around, and it can be startups. So the volumes, loads are going to be relatively high. So one can go for this 4200 or 5200, which is a production based system. On the other side, if you look at on the right hand side, 540 and 580, these are two crossover models where the volumes are relatively low and people are looking for end use parts. Basically, as I told you in the previous slides, SLS and multi-jet fusion technology are capable of giving you good, strong parts. But there is a difference here between these two also. So if people are looking for a machine which can work in a neat and clean environment, then SLS is not the right solution. For example, you want to put up a lab in future and you want to have a machine which can give you the end use parts. Then this is the technology which can go into the clean room, which can really give you the part what you want in color as well as mono. Okay, so these are the two platforms HP has come with. Uh, so I will explain you a little about the technology.
And processing station, fast cooling, efficient 3D printing workflow. Now you can deliver functional parts up to 10 times faster, lowest cost.
Yeah, I'm just stopping the video here. Are you able to get the sound also?
No,
No,
sound is
sound is
not
not
coming.
coming. Okay, I'll just explain a little here. In case of SLS, in case of SLS, there is a single beam laser beam. So that when say for example, I have got number of parts. If you can see some blocks, black spots here, it's basically number of parts we are going to print. So in case of SLS, each and every part will be sintered individually. So my laser will just go on that particular I mean coordinates, and then it will sinter point by point. So if I have to print all these five numbers parts, it is going to take five times the time, five times extra time, right? So here, if you look at when the printed comes in, it doesn't matter. I am printing 10 parts or 5 parts or 100 parts. If it is coming in that particular layer, it will be done in one go. That's how it is very, very fast. This technology is very, very fast. Yeah, basically, it was just trying to tell you it was like a pure production system where you can get all the parts which is required by the industry. Here, I will just explain the technology in this way because video was not giving you kind of clear understanding because there was no sound. So it's basically material layer powder is powder form material comes in powder form. So one layer of powder is there. After that, instead of laser, we apply two agents here. It basically works as a kind of catalyst. One is called fusing agent, the other one is called detailing agent. Third number is basically after this we apply the heat. So as a principle, see this one agent is black in color, which is responsible for fusing the material. So when we are applying the heat, it absorbs the heat, and the other one, because powder is in white form, white color, so it will be reflected, and this is how we get the our fused part. So this is the first time in the industry you are able to get the fully dense parts. Yes, SLS gives very good parts, but what beyond? It has got at least 5% of the porosity in the part, which makes the part little uh, uh, little weaker. So that issue was addressed in this technology. Here, if you look at, this is the fastest technology, as I told you. It can print multiple parts at the same time. Simultaneously, you can print number of parts. It uses, obviously, it is using industrial thermoplastic. Then highly scalable technology. A lot of activities are happening that we will explain later. And there is no inert gas required. Basically, in case of SLS, you need to have inert gases inside, which is always a kind of cost, and you have to take care of a lot of things in SLS. Okay. Now, in Visualize, what we have kept here, basically, this is the center we have. We have got 5200, that is our the production system. After that, we have got 4200. Then we have got one 580 machine also. So it covers up all product range of 3D printing from HP. And after this, we have got, if you look at, we have got SLA, we have got SLS, FDM, MJP, vacuum casting, and CNC machining. As a total, if you look at, it's a production system, complete all prototypes you can do. Okay. Any question you have? Anybody has a question as of now? You can just let me know, because I'm not able to see the questions if anybody is putting in. Now, we will move towards the digital manufacturing, the core topic, what we are probably most of you must be waiting for, like we are talking only on 3D printing. So we are just moving on to the digital manufacturing concept. Objective, why industry is driving towards the digital manufacturing. Basically, if you look at the generations, industry generation, first, second, today we are in fourth generation of industry 4.0, what we say, industry 4.0. It talks about the industrial IoT sensors. It talks about smart factories. It says cyber physical systems and all. So what does it mean? Means we are looking for better efficiency. We are looking for better automations. So from this, what is the expectation? Expectation is the right, the end expectation is I need to have the rapid innovation. I should not waste a lot of time like earlier days. In early days, one model used to come after 2 years. Today, car manufacturers are coming with different models in every 6 months, 3 months. It's something like that. Shorter time to the market. If I'm designing today, if I start my design today, it should take shortest time to come to the market, so that I can grab my market of my segment. Otherwise, there is a possibility somebody else is also working on the similar project, and they can come up and they can catch the market before I come in. So that is one of the areas. Then less inventory. Why should I keep a lot of inventories? You must have heard in today's scenario, people don't keep so much of inventories. This is basically we are talking about, and my supply chain should be very efficient. There should not be any gap. So when we are talking about supply chain efficiency, that means all my supply chain should be mostly on automated mode. Okay. And obviously, when I am able to achieve this, my capital efficiency is going to be much better. This is what Industry 4.0 expects, basically, right? So 3D printing is one of the tools which helps the industry to get into their target lines. So we are going to talk about 3D printing again. So because digital manufacturing, when we say, so it is basically, it revolves most time, it revolves around the 3D printing. So if you look at today's current scenario, what we are talking, basically 3D printing, as I told you, it is there in the market since 1983. Right. So why people have not, what is the area people have covered up so far? They have covered up only prototype, design acceleration. Basically, they have just taken 1 or 2 samples just to validate your design, and then that's it. Sometimes people go for few number of parts. What about on the other side, manufacturing? Development, yes, we are doing. What about the manufacturing, and what about the aftermarket? This is what we are going to talk. This is also one of the areas we are going to talk about. So reason I will tell you why people are not able to take up this 3D printing technology onto the other two segments, which is manufacturing and service MRO market. Basically, if you look at these are the three limits 3D printing had got so far. Slow, it was very slow technology. If you wish to print, if you wish to manufacture some 10 parts, it was very difficult because the technology was very slow. If you start printing on FDM or SLS or any other technology, then it is going to take a lot of time. When we say 10 parts I'm getting after 10 days, then I cannot even think of going into digital manufacturing, right? After this, okay, slow is one part, speed is one part, then it comes to production cost. If I take all the cost together, material cost, machine cost, then labor cost, wastage, everything, if I put together, the cost is huge cost. So I cannot even think of going for multiple number of parts. And third and most important thing is the part quality was really not good. It was basically when you are adding layer by layer, when you are adding layer by layer, it's basically a kind of sticking. So the part was not isotropic part, X and Y direction, X and Y axis. You were getting good strength, but Z was always weak. So that's basically the three limitations which was not enabling our 3D printing technology go into the area beyond prototyping. So here, if you look at on the right side, there is a table here. There is a table FDM technology. Yes, it uses the plastic what industry is looking for, that is thermoplastic. But speed was really very slow. It was the slowest technology in the industry. SLA, basically SLA uses thermoset plastic, epoxy based plastic, but speed was not good. SLS uses, yes, it is meant for end use parts, but unfortunately, speed is very slow. So the cost, and of course, digital manufacturing was not getting implemented because speed was very low. There are two more technologies, Polyjet and MJP. These are also like thermoset plastic. Thermoset plastic anyway is not preferred by the industry. Now it comes to the last, which is the latest technology, HPMJF, which is using the thermoset plastic and fastest in the industry. This is the technology which is the fastest in the industry, which is able to give you the kind of, it can help you to reach the target lines. For example, I say 100 parts I want tomorrow. Yes, you can do it. I want 200 parts by day after tomorrow. Yes, you can do. So that's basically we are talking about. Today we are talking about 100, 200 parts. The day is not far when we are going to talk about 1,000 parts a day. So that's basically the scenario. It is changing very fast.
Sir, audio is not clear actually.
Audio is not clear.
Hello?
Hello. Is it better now? Hello? Is it better now? Hello. Is it better?
Yes, it is better.
Okay. So it's basically, I've talked about the different technologies available in the market, the speed and the material. That is basically the table we have made. And now I'll talk about the next slide. So in previous slide, I was talking about only the bridge production and prototyping. But this area, mass production, low production, customized production, manufacturing tools, and your spare part division, spare part digital inventory. Basically, this was the area where we are talking about today. When we talk about the digital manufacturing means it's basically we should be able to produce the parts digitally. Wherever you are having the volumes of, say, for example, 100 parts or something of that kind, then you should not go for a conventional manufacturing, such as injection molding or maybe CNC machining or something, so any other process. So we are talking about this future of digital manufacturing. So addressable markets are basically manufacturing tools, customized production, then your low volume, and mass production. As of now, it is just blank. But there will be a time, there will be a day when mass production is also being done digitally. So that's not the area. I mean, that's the area which is not addressed so far. All right. So it's basically from prototyping to production. That is the journey we are going to talk about. Okay. So now we will just say like in how digital, how our technology is able to help you out driving into digital manufacturing. So before we talk about the digital manufacturing, yes, digital manufacturing is a good dream, but how we are going to achieve, that's basically very important to understand. So when we are talking about, like see today, if you look at in the down, we are in prototyping stage. We are here and we have to reach this goal. To achieve this goal, there are certain number of camps we have to attend to achieve. One is we have to understand what technology can suit my requirement. Am I audible to you, all of you?
Yes, sir, it's audible.
Yes, it's audible.
Okay. Basically, if I have to achieve my goal of digital manufacturing from prototyping, I need to achieve three camps. The first camp is the very important camp is basically the technology. I should choose a technology which is really able to give me the desired results. Okay. Then, of course, the technology when I am just saying a technology which is able to give me the desired results, that means it is going to be a kind of very unique technology, and of course, the cost is going to be a little higher. So, when I talk about like I want to make only the prototyping, then my technology is very, very costly. Any technology I'm saying, it's not my technology, all technologies. When you start exploring number of applications, when you start applications, then it becomes quite convenient because a lot of other process is also used in other applications. So if you can just make out all the applications, bring it in one one table, and then you see these are all addressable from the same technology, then it becomes quite cheap. Right. So we are going to talk about these three now and design concepts. Are you able to change the design the way you want? Because in today's conventional manufacturing, there are limitations. You have to do draft fingers, you have to make number of parts and then join together, make an assembly. So all those things are basically the challenges. If what if you want to make a working assembly in one day, it's a dream. It's not achievable, right? So there should be a technology. When I say digital manufacturing, I should have a technology which is capable of giving me the full assembly in one go. Full assembly in one go without making number of parts and joining it together. So that's what I expect from my technology. All right. So I should have that facility in that technology to change my design the way I want. So these are very important things before we choose any technology. Now, from the technology, when we choose the right technology, what are all the things required from it? My part quality. These 3 points, if you look at part quality, speed, and cost of production, I had mentioned in my previous slides also, like where 3D printing is stuck with prototyping only. Basically, part quality is basically it is strength, my durability, isotropy, accuracy, and mechanical property. So, isotropy, I need to explain to you. When I'm able to print my part, when I'm printing my part, my expectation is it should be as good as my injection molded part. What I mean to say is, I was just saying X and X, Y, and Z. So all three axes should be equal for me. Then only I can say, yes, it is a usable part. I'm just printing, I'm making and putting into my application forever. So that's basically, if unless and until your part is fully isotropic, XYZ completely dense part, I will not be able to use it because always there will be a doubt in my mind that if my part has got some porosity inside, if it has got, say, for example, from 100% to 95% of my strength, then part is likely to fail. That fear is always there in my mind. So when I move or choose digital manufacturing, this is one very important point. Second, speed. My speed is basically a lot of people say my printer can print within this time, but they don't take up They don't consider the processing time. They don't consider any of the other time. I'm talking about everything. It is printing or processing and how many parts I am printing. So basically, what if I am able to print 100 parts in one go? By tomorrow morning, my 100 parts will be available, which will be available. So while choosing the technology, I should have these two in my mind, and obviously cost of production. So cost of production is basically material cost, and are you able to use that material? Are you able to use the material again and again? Because in most of the technologies, what happens is almost 15-20% of the material goes into the waste. That's again a big cost. So are you able to reuse that material? What is the percentage of material, if at all it is? And what is the overall productivity? When we talk about the productivity, it has basically the overall number of parts you are taking out vis-a-vis your cost, how much you are spending onto it. Basically, these are the factors we have to keep in our mind while we are choosing our technology. I'm not saying it is technology A, B, or C. It is basically general concept. If somebody is looking for implementing digital manufacturing, he has to have the technology which is able to give you the like it is able to address these three factors. Then it comes to camp number two. I was talking about the camp number two, applications. Is your technology, the technology what you have chosen or you're going to choose, is it able to give you all these applications also? Is it able to address? Of course, any technology in the market, in the industry, is capable of giving you the prototypes for your design validation. Yes, it was. What about the development parts? Development parts is always in a short quantity, maybe 100, maybe 50, maybe 10 or something of that kind. So in that case, the technology which was available in the market for a number of years was getting failed in the second point itself, the developmental parts. And then it comes to the manufacturing tools. Manufacturing tool is basically nothing but kind of jigs, fixtures and all. So normally, if I'm sure some of you must have seen jigs and fixtures in the industry also, or maybe some videos or something of that kind. So there are number of parts machined or manufactured through conventional manufacturing and then joined together because of the design, because of the manufacturing constraints, different angles, different draft angles, assemblies you cannot make in single go. So here, when I am talking about digital manufacturing, my technology should be able to give me this kind of application should be catered. So basically, when I'm talking about jigs and fixtures, a lot of money goes into the jigs and fixtures on conventional manufacturing. That can be converted. So what is going to be the benefit out of it? Here, benefit will be your weight reduction. You can reduce a lot of weight onto the part. It is quite ergonomic, and it is going to be like the way you want. For example, this third picture, if you look at, there are two small pipes you can see. So these are basically the pipes which have got a diameter, variable diameter from the bottom to top, which is not possible in any other conventional manufacturing, right? Then it comes to the fourth point is end use functional parts. Am I able to get the end use functional parts from the technology? So this is what we have to achieve. If I have to reach my digital manufacturing goal, these should be there in my mind. I should be able to address these. And the third camp is basically implementing the way I designed. If you look at the same part, what I was explaining in the previous slide, this one. Are you able to see my cursor also?
Yes. We can see.
Okay. Basically, here I am saying about change the way you design. Here, you should have a complete, in digital manufacturing, the concept, you have got the complete design freedom. Any complex design, you can make the way you want. No manufacturing limitation. Design consolidation you can do. From 10 parts, you can make single part. Then design of the performance you can do in your DFAM, and the cost efficiency. Obviously, when I say my material is lesser, my ergonomics are better, then your cost efficiency, obviously it will come automatically. So I will just give you an example of this particular part, which is there on the downside. This particular part was assembly of around 8 to 10 parts. Okay, and here, okay, fine. The part is manufactured, assembled through conventional manufacturing, but still there was a challenge. This is from basically there is HP has got number of production centers basically. So this is the part which was on the it's basically drill extraction tool. What it does is basically in the print head assembly line, each and every print head is tested for its functionality. So this is basically a tool where in these two pipes, this silicon used to go inside, and through some assembly which used to come back, and it will go back. So this is the function of this part. Okay. So this particular part, since there is no variable dia here in these pipes, and bottom side had got some challenges because it used to get clogged in between. Let me see if I have got this part in my hand. Vinod, do you have this part in your hand, Vinod?
No, sir, not at the moment.
Okay.
I believe it's in office. So,
Okay, no issues. So basically, there used to be that silicon clogging used to happen, and the people were bound to stop the line once in a week, used to clean that silicon, that clogging used to happen, and then they will start once again. So every week they used to stop the line for at least 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours. Basically, even cleaning doesn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes, but the process of stopping and starting again, it used to take at least 1 to 2 hours. So that was a tedious process, and every assembly line had got the same problem. Okay, when this technology came into existence, this multi-jet fusion technology, what HP has implemented in, they have invented. So they have started, why not to tie in our own parts? So they have identified and designed in such a way. They have done the kind of part consolidation or design optimization they have done, and they have come up with the part which is there on the above, this one. So what was the result? Result was it has become more economic. Number one, it has become more efficient, and now with this part, they are cleaning. Of course, cleaning is required, but the interval has become from 1 week to 3 months. That's basically the kind of advantage they have got out of it. If somebody says I can change my part from 8 part assembly to single, nobody is going to pay attention to you, right? If I say I can reduce your cleaning frequency from your 7 days to 1 week to 3 months, then obviously it will just get straight into the mind. So this is where digital manufacturing helps to solve the problems. On the top, you can see lattice structures the way you want. If you feel you're not going to put a high load onto the part, then obviously why to have the solid part with me? It is unnecessarily, it's a kind of bulky part for me. So why not to reduce the material from inside? These are the areas where people are working. See, very classical example is basically aerospace. Aerospace industry requires the strong parts, but it should be light in weight. Then if I am just machining a block, and you just think over, lot of weight is there inside, what is going to be the efficiency level of the aircraft? On the other hand, if I'm able to make it inside hollow with lattice structure, and if my tests are passed, because obviously I have to do a lot of analysis before it. So why not to have this kind of things? If I put this kind of lattice structure inside, then what is going to be the efficiency level? It is going to be much better. So this is what we are talking about. Yeah. So how HP has brought this technology in the market? So what they have started is, instead of going into the market first, they have at least 1 to 2 years they have spent on their own production lines only, because HP is a manufacturer of largest manufacturer of the 3D 3D printers, inkjet printers, laser printers, and all. So they have just come onto their own product lines actually. So here we are going to cover up this manufacturing tools, customized production, low production again, what we had talked about in previous slides. Okay, manufacturing tools. The first thing is manufacturing tools. Manufacturing tools. So this is basically one of the product lines from HP only. It's basically a printer, folding printer, you can say. So it's basically, it needs to come with it's a calibration tool. On the top left, if you see, there is one aluminum machined part. Okay, this was basically a calibration tool which used to be supplied along with every printer. Okay, so machined component was 355 grams, and it used to take a little time also because it's a complex part, so it used to be an assembled part. It has got 1 or 2 parts assembled and then it was made. So they have implemented their own technology, and finally they have brought down the weight of the part to 23 grams, which is almost 93% reduction. If you look at 55 grams to 23 grams, and I am able to, because this particular area, if you look at on this the fourth picture, actually this is the area which is required for calibrating the particular head. Then why should I have this kind of design? This is basically the power of our digital manufacturing, technology optimization. Here, if you are reducing your weight by 93%, of course, my cost has also gone down. And think of the carbon footprint. This is reduced by almost 95%. So that's basically the kind of advantage. Next is the same case study I've spoken about. This was basically assembly of almost 18 parts, and finally it has just come very ergonomical, very light in weight, and just think over, it was made within half an hour's time. So that's basically the kind of, and if you look at these parts, these are all made individually, and at least one or two you have to keep always in your stock, because you don't know if one of the part fails, next part will take a lot of time to get in. You cannot get it in the next day, right? Because it has got a process. It is going to take its own time. Machining will take its own time. So I can't stop my line, right? I cannot stop my line. So I have to keep at least 1 or 2 or 3 parts in my stock. Here, that is not the case. You can get on the same day, within 2-3 hours, you can get the new part. Okay. And if you look at the weight, from 575 grams, it has come down to 52 grams, which is cost-wise 95% cost reduction, and weight reduction is 90%. So this kind of things, when we talk about the customer, when we talk to the customer, yes, I can reduce your cost by 95%. It is going to strike in the mind of the customer. Yes, there is something he's talking about. Okay. So there is one more challenge here. If you talk about, somebody will just come and say how it is going to perform, because 3D printing is not a tested and tried methodology. So we have the answer. You just think of, I have put a pneumatic gripper here. Which is going to work as a assembled, which is going to work as a end-use part. So it is basically HP technology gives you the flexibility and the advantage that you can make fully airtight, watertight parts. It is fully IP67 certified part. Means you can put your part, you can put your part in the water also, it will function. It is not going to leak. This is, if you see the gripper, it is a working gripper, and the cycle time we have already tried out 1 million times. 1 million times it has performed. This is fully airtight part, which was never there in the technology, any of the 3D printing technology, right? So this is one advantage. I was talking about a slight difference between SLS and MJF in the starting. I was talking about slight difference. This is the slight difference. If you look at, it's a big difference, but I'm saying slight difference. In SLS, generally what happens, 5%, almost 5% of the porosity is there in the part. So if 5% of the porosity is there, then leakage is likely to be there. There will be a leakage and it is not going to function. Yeah, any question is there from any side? Okay. This is also one of the grippers here. In industry, a lot of robotic applications are there where parts are lifted with the help of robot, and end of arm tool. End of arm tool is always a machined one. It is always a kind of assembled part, and it has got a lot of weight onto it. Here, if you look at, if you are able to produce the part in one single go, which is very, very light in weight. So you are going to give a very, very low load to the robot. So your robotic arm performance efficiency is going to be much better than any other way. So it is ideal for functional and use parts. The parts manufactured from the technology are strong, durable, and fully isotropic. Isotropic, I'm emphasizing again and again because this is the only technology which is capable of giving it. MDF from HP, this is the only technology which is capable of giving you the fully airtight, uh, fully isotropic part, fully airtight, oil tight, watertight, IP67 certified, which is ideal for pneumatic and fluid application. And cost and efficiency, obviously, it is very, very good as compared to any other technology. Part consolidation and designing, of course, this you can do from any other technology also. These are some of the case studies. We have done lot of jigs, fixtures, tools for the industry. If you look at this on the right hand side, top bottom, these are the fixtures for testing the automotive light. Before they go into putting into the assembly or a car assembly, because customer is not going to give you the full car to test your parts. They will just tell you, like, this is my design. For this, you have to design my light suitable for this particular car or maybe any other vehicle. So they will not give you the vehicle complete. So these are the fixtures which is going to help them put onto the one assembly for testing, for checking the gaps and all. On the other hand, right hand side, this is basically horn pad. When the horns are manufactured, there is a fixture meant for it. Previously, the customer was having an aluminum fixture. Aluminum fixture was having at least the weight of 8 to 10 kg. So lifting that 8 to 10 kg every time was difficult, very, very difficult for the worker or whoever is using it. With the help of our 3D printing technology, first thing what we have done is we have just made a part consolidation. From 8 to 10 parts, we have made single part first. Number 2, we have made it hollow from inside. So that 8 to 10 kg weight has come down to around 500 grams. And it is able to give the same performance what it was giving previously with 8 to 10 kg. So that's a kind of advantages. And we are doing this kind of activity in, day out in the industry, and it is being accepted by them very well, very well. How it is possible? Basically, your part has to be very strong, very strong. When we talk about very strong, means very strong. It should not fail during the kind of testing what customer does. Okay, so this is the area where we are talking about. We are working in actually. These are some of the parts we have manufactured in recent past. One of them is, if you look at the third one in the row, this is a very safety part. It's a safety part, right? It's a brake pad. We have printed a brake pad from our technology, and it is able to do all the tests. All tests are passed on this particular part without any problem. This kind of durability you should be able to get from a technology, and that kind of thing we are able to give from our technology. Now it comes to low volume production and customized. Low volume production, what it does is, I will just give you one small example. During the month of March end this year, during the month of March, there was a kind of threat. This Corona COVID-19 pandemic is going to spoil everything, and government of India has assessed like how many ventilators are there in our country. So they found the ventilators number is very very less in the country, and we were seeing like what is happening in Italy, what is happening in other countries like US and all. So a lot of people were going on ventilators. There was a big threat. If the same scenario happens in India, what will we do? So government of India, PMO, decided like, okay, let's go for some 20,000 ventilators in this month itself. So there was not even a single company in India. First of all, ventilators were not manufactured in large scale in India. So it was a big task. And imports from any other country was almost banned that time because of that threat of COVID. So what they've decided, they have found one company based out of Noida who is producing almost 500 ventilators a month. It was a startup company, 2 years old company, but their portable ventilators were really efficient, good ventilators, but their capacity was very very less. So what they have decided is they have taken up that company, and they have called company Maruti Suzuki to give the kind of infrastructure, because anyway that time Maruti or any other manufacturing company was just shut down. It was completely locked down. So during that time, it was advised that you give your facility to them so that they can manufacture the parts. They can manufacture the ventilators. But still, again, there is a challenge. If you go for a mold making, because obviously conventional manufacturing is done through tools and molds only, right? In that case, what was the way out? The way out was only one: you go for 3D printing. What we have done is we have come forward. We have come forwarded. It was our own existing customer before we used to make number of parts, but it was some 10 parts, 50 parts, something of that kind. So we just came forwarded, and we identified number of parts which can be manufactured on our, which cannot be done. I mean, for which mold cannot be made immediately, which is very complex part. So we identified almost 12, 13 parts out of it. From there, we have started our facility. In the previous slides only, I have just mentioned in Visualize, we have got 150, 200, 140, 200, and 580. So two production machines were there with us. We have taken up the job, and believe me, within 25 days, we have printed 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh, 1.25 lakh, in fact. 1.25 lakh, 1,25,000 parts we have printed in 1 month's time, that is 25 days, and we have delivered to the customer. That's basically the kind of end use parts. When we talk about digital manufacturing, this is the real mean of it actually. If I have got the emergency, if I'm looking for something which is unique, complex, without tooling I want to make, I should be able to make it. And we have done it actually. Okay. So this is basically the ventilator which we have manufactured the parts for. And really, it was a big study for us. We were also having a kind of, because we have done this kind of project for the first time, we were also having a little confidence deficit, you can say. We were also, because we have done number of parts, number of projects, but this kind of emergency was not there. Okay, so we have taken up the challenge, and we were successful. You can say, yes, my technology can do this kind of production very easily. This is what I was, I mean, in this video also, it is the same thing is explained here. My printer is capable of printing number of parts together simultaneously. If you look at these black spots now, these are the layers of these parts only. These are the two machines which have really done a very good job. 25 days, continuously 24/7 they have run without any failure. And we were able to deliver the whole lot of project actually. And it was delivered on time to PMO. Then it comes to one more case study comes in. There's one car manufacturer. There's one car manufacturer who has developed a car, new car they wanted to, generally for before mass production, they go for all number of cars actually, maybe 50, 100, 200, something of that kind. They will send it to different geographies. It can be some car will go into Himalaya, some car will go into the plain area, some car will go into Rajasthan or something. So they just send it testing in all the environments actually. So making those cars, and they keep on sending the data. Every day data they will send it to the center. This is the problem in this particular part. My brother is working as a R&D engineer, R&D manager in fact now. He is working with Tata Motors and he is a part of this team actually. Most of the time I have seen is he's sometimes getting the data from this car which is there in Himalayas. Sometimes he travels also along with them. Basically, it's a trial car actually. In trial car, they will fit a part. They will fit a part, and the part will how it is performing after say 2000 hours, maybe 100 hours, something of that kind. So they will just keep on collecting the data from that part, and then they will give the feedback to their center, and they will make the kind of modifications, whatever modifications are required, they will do, and as per the feedback. So this is how it works actually. So one job came to us. Uh, Even though we are doing a regular job for a lot of companies, but this particular case study I'm talking about, it was a set of around 100 car sets. 100 car sets, 100 into 5 into 2. Basically, 5 doors are there, including the key, right? 5 door sets, uh, inner and outer. So it was basically 300 sets we have printed, and it has gone very, very well actually. Very well. Finally, see, obviously, as I mentioned in my previous slides also, it is not catering mass production as on today, but yes, this kind of loads we have addressed very conveniently, and customers are quite happy. They were able to do, because see here the challenge is, if I want 300 sets, it is going to take at least 1 month to deliver. If I am just going for conventional manufacturing, okay, here we were able to do within 2, 3, 4 days. That's the kind of beauty of this digital manufacturing. We have given all assembled parts to them, and they were able to test within the time. Of course, some of the parts cannot be done, some of the parts cannot be done. So there's no way out. And most of the parts, if you look at the basic parts like AC and all, there is no big difference. There's no big difference. Always cosmetic changes are there. Always interior parts are changed. Something of that kind is changed. So that's how we have we were able to deliver them these parts. Now, implementing digital manufacturing on this again low manufacturing, volumes. Basically, if you look at this right hand side, this is basically 3D camera from HP. This 3D camera, they decided to launch a 3D camera in the market, but they were not sure whether it is going to get successful or not in the market. So how will I do? If I just go directly onto the tool manufacturing, through conventional manufacturing, if I go, my cost on the tool is going to be very high. And I'm not very sure whether my product is going to be successful or not in the market. I need to go for a small production in the sense maybe 50 parts. Cameras I will manufacture, send it to my dealers, and show it to the end customers, how it looks like, what is the kind of feedback from the customer. That's going to be the kind of criteria for them to whether to go for tooling mass production or to just stop it. Right. So here, this on the right hand side, they have made few parts. I mean, some 100 cameras they have manufactured from 3D printing, and they have sent it to the market. Once it was successfully done, then they went for a mass production. Now, again, low volume production. One more example. On the left hand side, this is 580, 540. 540 and 580 look like same. So this machine has got lot of parts which are manufactured on our 3D printer only. Why it is basically 3D printers are not in number, mass scale. It doesn't go on mass scale. it goes only on maybe 100 printers in a year. Sorry, globally 100 printers a month, something of that kind. It is not 1,000 printers a month. It's not that way. So what they have decided is the complex parts, let us print it on our own printers. Why not to go for our own printers? Because the printing cost is very high. Why not to go for 3D printing itself? So they have started printing their own parts on their own machines. Okay, some of them, if you look at almost 160 parts, are printed on 3D printer. Out of 160, almost 15 parts, almost 15-20 parts are basically meant for hydraulic application within the printer, because hydraulic applications are also there. Right? So it can be possible only when you are getting the isotropic parts, when you are getting fully isotropic parts. Okay, so this is the example of low volume production. Yeah, this is also the same thing, like part consolidation and all. I have explained to you. Then I'll just come on to the short batch production. Short batch and customized production. So customization, basically, healthcare industry. For example, I want to go into this prosthetics. So every part is going to be unique, completely unique. We are doing a lot of projects with some of the companies in India for this prosthetic applications. What it does is basically they are working for Indian Army and other forces, where the people who are working on the high altitude, sometimes they lose their limbs because of snow, because of fight, because of bullet or anything. So in that case, it becomes very challenging for those soldiers to survive. And if they go into the market to buy this kind of prosthetics and all, then it becomes difficult for them. Very, very difficult. It's very costly. So this company is basically working for this project. They have done the collaboration with Government of India, and they are working on this so that they can give the customized limbs to the people, to those soldiers, so that they don't have to face a lot of problems. So this kind of activity is happening here. Why I'm saying low volume production? Because it is not going to be mass, right? It can be, and every time it is going to be customized only. So we are doing this kind of project with them, and it's under trial as of now. I should not say it is successful or something, but out of India, a lot of projects are successful of this kind. This first one, if you look at this orthotic insoles, this is going very successfully in the market, because in today's scenario, we have seen a lot of deformities there. In everybody's foot. You just go and get it scanned, our feet and all. We'll just get to know like what is the kind of deficiency in my foot. So a lot of companies are there who are working onto this. They will just make a customized sole, which you can put into your shoe and use it, so that the problem which is there, at least it can be resolved, or it can be, at least it doesn't go beyond. Okay, so this is the area, and we have got the dental also. We are working on dental area. We are doing a lot of models for them. Basically, some of them are into this clear aligners, and some of them are doing some kind of surgeries and all, so they require models for it. When it comes to your customized production, again, of course, it's basically, if you look at this the problem with the kids, so there are designs available in the market which are normally heavy, and it's not like ergonomic. Its aesthetic is not good, so in that case it doesn't, like, it has got challenge. HP has just come up with this technology which is able to help in this area. Then we can make the anatomical models out of it, and of course we have got on the right hand side, I already explained, in soles. So here again, I've just come back. These are the two crossover model and production model which are being used in all these above applications. This is 5200. Yeah, so I will just explain you about my printer a little now, because it's just coming to the end of session. So I'll just explain you a little about my printer now. This is 5200 and 4200. It's basically complete production system, which has got the build size of 380 mm by 284 by 380 mm. It uses the nylon grade material, which is capable of producing durable isotropic parts for you, which are end use parts. This is open platform. There is one very unique thing which HP has brought in, basically open platform. Open platform is you can previously, until this MGF technology from HP was launched, nobody was aware of like who's manufacturing the material for a 3D printer. Okay, who's manufacturing the material for them? It was a kind of behind the bar. It was behind the stage. They were manufacturing the material, and the printer manufacturer was buying the material from them and used to sell to the customer at his own price. What HP has done is HP doesn't want to play on the material. HP says, I am the printer manufacturer. I am giving the option to my consumer, my customer, to buy the material directly from the manufacturer of the material. And they have identified they're working with 50 material manufacturers globally. So all known material manufacturers globally are working onto it, and material manufacturers are already on the board. And what HP has done is HP has put their names with the article number. Article number is basically a reference number where if you just go back to your manufacturer of material that I want to buy particular material, so there has to be some article number. So you can refer that article number, and you can buy the material from there also directly. So basically, it is completely democratized by HP. After HP has brought in this concept, the market is completely changed. What happens is, what is going to happen if I am just putting a competition on among the material manufacturers also? So my cost of the material is going to come down, which used to be like a bomb earlier. Because if I am the only one, then I can keep my prices as per my wish. But if I have got a competition in the market, obviously I cannot keep it. So that's what HP has done. They have democratized the price of the material completely. Now it comes to modular structure. Yes, modular structure, I've shown you in the video also. You can achieve maximum throughput from the machine, from the system. You can run 24 by 7 this machine, and it can, like as I have told you in the case study, we were able to produce 1,25,000 parts in 25 days. So it was like a good throughput, maximum throughput we have taken out of the machine. This is crossover model. It is a relatively lower capacity machine. Why? Because it is required. It is used by the people who are having some labs, R&D labs, something of that kind, where the volumes are not very high. So here we have got color as well as the monochrome. What is the use of color? I think these pictures can well define. Like if you want to just put the labels, QR code or something of that kind for identification, you require some color or something of that kind. The personalized prosthetic, basically it is just to give a kind of lucrative look and all. Of course, it has to have a good strength also. So technology base is same for production machine as well as our crossover model. So it is adding the colors here. Why this color fixture is required? Because sometimes the parts what you are putting in is similar in all directions. So at least if you are able to put the kind of color coding or color identification onto one of the side, you can easily identify like how I have to put my part onto it. Then your healthcare, anatomic models and all, and obviously color presentation. So it has got its own application. And we have seen a very good adoption of this technology. I mean, the color model, the color printer, because it is unique. It is unique. After SLS used to have only white parts, white or black. Here you can achieve on the same quality, same strength, everything is same with color. This is for the first time in industry which has come in. So we are getting a good success in this. Now, why HP Multijet Fusion most desirable technology for the digital manufacturing? That is basically the part quality, production, throughput you can get, lowest cost and speed and scalability. Scalability, basically, we are working on different kind of application areas onto it. So for example, this machine 580, 540, HP is working on something like conductive ink. Conductive ink. I mean to say for example, you have made a part, and see, when we are talking about IoTs and smart parts and all, so in today's scenario, we are putting the wires from outside. What if I am able to put a track within the part itself? Within the part itself, so my part is going to have more durability, because it. Why durability? I'm saying basically the wiring and all what you are putting in, it may fail sometime. But if the layer is there inside the part itself, it is not going to fail. So this kind of things he is working on, and it will be available soon in the same machine. Now, materials we have available is PA12 glass field. These are nylon materials. P11, TPU, and PP. PP is the material which is mostly used in your automotive application, your what do you say, consumer durable. A lot of other areas are also there. So we have got 5 materials as of today, and it's increasing. We have started with 1, and now it is currently it is 5, and it's increasing. So here, it's not more important on the material side; it is important on the functionality. What kind of applications you can do in? Okay. Now, maximum throughput I was talking about. So vertically, horizontally, if you look at this side, whatever number of parts are there, small part, big part, I can put all together and print simultaneously. So it doesn't take much of the time. I mean, there is no difference if I'm putting number of parts into it. It's going to take almost the same time. And then it is production cost. So here there is a calculation here. There is something called packing density. If I am printing more parts, my packing density will become more, and my cost will come down, because I am using a fixed cost onto it. This is, I think, if you have got an interest on understanding this, we can discuss it later on also. Okay, so this is scalability and all I was talking about. This is the fastest one. I think this is okay. Now I'll come on to like making the leap to factory production through educational institutions. The educational institutions have to take the lead of doing the changes, because in the industry, nobody has got a time. Is there any question? If I can take a break of 1 minute, I can take the questions also.
Yeah, there are two questions. One is from Rasmi Ranjan Mahapatra.
Okay.
It is about, can you explain how you are going to reusability?
Reusability. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Reusability. What it does is, basically in one of the videos, it was just sucking out the material. What it does is, during the process of process I was explaining you, there is a layer of powder, right? Layer of powder material. I am from the top. What I'm doing is I am just applying fusing agent and detailing agent. So fusing agent, I will just take you through my same PPT. I think it will be better. I will be able to explain you in a better way if I take you through. Give me a second, huh? Yeah. I was explaining you this process. Basically, this powder is there. This is powder, okay? So after the layer is formed, I am applying the 2 agents here. One agent is called fusing agent, which is black in color. The other one is basically transparent material. This is called detailing agent. So I will explain you the function of this also. So after this is jetted through the print head, if you look at this, there is one print head moving. There is one print head moving here. This is the one. Okay. So it is just getting the material here, detailing agent and the fusing agent. After this, I am applying the heat. So wherever my fusing agent is there, which is black in color, it's nothing but the pigments only, black pigments. So it is absorbing the heat here and it is making it completely fused inside. Because if when I'm applying the heat here, it is absorbing it for a more time. Okay, and it is making sure that your parts are manufactured in a very high density, up to 99.7%. Now, the second agent what I have applied here is basically to protect your part here. Protect your part here, number one. Number two, to protect the material which is left out. Generally, in case of SLS or any other technology, a lot of powder gets wasted. Gets wasted. Here, what it does in the next cycle means in the next cycle I will just Sir, are you able to see this video? It is sucking out all the powder. It is sucking out all the powder. So this powder will be ready for use in the next cycle. So it is going to take at least 15 to 20% of the material for the making the part itself. Okay. See, these parts are manufactured. Rest of the material is sucked out by this sucker. It will just go into the recycle bin. And when we are taking the next cycle, in next cycle, I will be adding 20% of the material and 80% of the material will be reused. The same material will be reused in the next cycle. Hope I have answered to your question.
Okay, let's move to the next question. So please.
Yeah. Hello, sir. This is Triluchan. I'm a PhD scholar from IIT Madras. First of all, thank you, sir, for your nice presentation and explanation of the things.
Yeah.
And congratulations for your contribution to the society in this difficult COVID times. And sir, my question is, what's your say about metal 3D printing? And do you have any facility, maybe in India or abroad, for 3D printing of the metals?
Metals? You're talking about 3D printing of metal?
Metal. Yeah, metal.
Metal.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll explain.
Metallic part.
I'll explain to you. Basically, as far as since we are promoting the technology from HP, HP is not yet to launch the metal 3D printing in India. It has been developed. It has been launched out of India. It is scheduled for Jan or Feb in India. After, you can say, in next financial year, we will be having metal 3D printing also in our facility. But as on today, we don't have.
Yeah. So, sir, just to add on that. So next year, you are saying you will be having the facilities in India. I mean, it will be under your control or some other?
Yeah. See, basically, okay, I will tell you.
Just to add okay. One more thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, please continue.
I could not hear you. Can you repeat?
Yes, sir. My question is there any scope? Maybe, as you are saying, from next year onwards, you might be having the facilities of 3D printing for metallic parts.
Yeah.
So, just to ask, sir, is there any scope for collaboration, if possible, with academic institutions or to research facilities, whatever you are having? Any collaboration might be possible?
Yes, it can be very well possible. It can be very well possible.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Let the technology get launched in India, then definitely we can work on. That's not an issue. All right.
Thank you. Looking forward to the.
Sure.
Yeah,
any other question here? Okay, I'll just come back on the same slide. Yeah, so I was talking about like making a leap to the factory production, how it can be possible, how it can be possible. Like educational institutions have to play a lead role to change. Normally, in case of what do you say, in conventional production in the companies, what is the kind of concept? It becomes very, very difficult if people are not ready to accept the change, adapt the change, unless and until it is ready-made available. If unless and until it is available ready-made, right? So the normal response to the change in the process, you can say, like uh, a student or institute or somebody who has got some solution in his mind. If he offers, I think I can do it better. The other guy who is working on conventional way, he's saying, no, I am well experienced. I am the best. The other guy says, no, 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 I'm too busy. But they don't know the value of putting up the wheels onto it. It can make very fast. It can make very efficient, but people don't adapt it because they are not used to. They don't have time. So that's where we have to work. The educational institution has to work as a kind of here. Yes, I have something for you. So instead of just giving the idea, if you give them a cart, complete cart, yes, I have a ready-made solution with you, with me. It will be easy for them to adapt. So what you have to do is you have to create your engineers in such a way that they are readily available for the industry to adapt. It's not only 3D printing, a lot of things are there which requires to make them perfect, to make them ready-made. So here, critical for adoption, basically engage the students and the industry. That is one critical factor. So here, training and knowledge sharing, it is, even though it is there, but it's not very on a mass scale. It's not a very high level scale. So that is to be done. Then it comes to like skill development and resource supply. Uh, Third is identifying the right applications and consultancy. What you have to do is, what universities have to do is, basically they have to start giving the application consultancy. They have to identify, sit with the industry, collaborate with the industry, find out what are the applications, and start giving the consultancy. Once they start getting engaged into it, they will understand the value of it, and obviously the whole industry will get benefited, institute will get benefited. If their industry, if their engineers are ready-made with these kind of knowledge, then definitely it can be a win-win situation for everyone. So this is very critical stage for adoption actually. Now, knowledge creation. Basically, like today we are sharing some kind of knowledge through seminar, technical sessions and all. We keep on doing like this. And then generative design for digital manufacturing. This is DFAM basically. DFAM people have to start thinking on DFAM. Like today we are having the assemblies. We have got assemblies of parts. So how we can convert into like single design, generative design, how we can make a design so that performance can increase. Then we have to identify the applications and its scalability. That also can be done through discovery sessions, training sessions with the company, with the engineers and all. Third thing is proof of concept and technical evaluation. Basically, when you are giving a concept to some company, you have to do the benchmarking. Without benchmarking, nobody is going to believe, right? So this proof of concept and technical evaluation is very important here. And then it comes to your driving implementation. Then your consultancy and pilot projects will start running. So that's basically the kind of adoption process. How your people, how the institutions can get connected with the industry is basically this way. You have to do the seminar, technical session, then you have to just tell them the generative design can work this way. Then you have to do some application discovery, then you have to do the benchmarking, and then finally you'll get a consultancy project. This is the path actually. How to get connected fully with the industry. It's basically you have to generate the engineers who are really tuned to it actually, right? Here, what is the kind of summary I will just come on to? Role of educational institutions. You have to talk about your engineers who are coming out of your college, of your universities, have to talk about the technology where they are talking about the toolless manufacturing for end use functional parts and low production you can do without tooling. Because today industry is struggling to get all these things, these applications addressed. People come to us also, we do a lot of sessions with them, and finally we get a success also. But it's not so easy. It's long process actually, long way to go. Then we have to talk about the application. If your engineers are going into the market and asking for this kind of things, definitely it is going to be more effective than I say to them. If I say to them, it will be, people will feel like he's a sales guy. He wants to sell his solution. But if an engineer who is having the knowledge of this kind and talks internally, then it will be more effective. So your engineers have to uh, be more efficient, more well versed with this kind of thing, actually. Digital manufacturing. Here it says constraint-free design. So when somebody goes and says constraint-free design, then a lot of people will just laugh on him. What is he talking about? So we have to just explain. We should be able to have that capability. Now, conclusion. Again, we started with this only. So in industry, we were talking about rapid innovation. So here, instead of design to manufacture, we are talking about design to print. Instead of talking, because we were going through conventional manufacturing from design to manufacture, we are talking about design to print directly. Then shorter time to the market. When we say shorter time to the market, it is possible only when you are not wasting your time on making the tools. Okay. Then when we say less inventory, means I want the part tomorrow. I should be able to get it tomorrow. Why should I keep the inventory then? Because keeping the inventory costs a lot of money actually. You have to keep in big infrastructure, you have to keep manpower and all. If I have got the digital inventory, on demand parts I can get without any problem, without any issues I can get. So digital inventory, if my digital inventory is there, obviously my supply chain is going to be much efficient. See, there is one small example I'm telling you. There is one company in Noida. One day, me and Vinod has visited that company. So we just got to know their challenge. There is a discontinued model of Maruti Suzuki, and they are the regular supplier of the Maruti Suzuki. So they have kept the tool. For a number of years, and they are getting the requirement from the Maruti Suzuki for those parts, maybe 100 in a year. Those 100 parts in a year, they are maintaining that tool. They are just keeping into their inventory. They are maintaining it. They are like, it's a big cost. We have given a kind of this offer. We have given them the solution, and now they have discarded that particular I'm not saying all the tools. Some of the tools they have removed from their system, and they are doing digitally. And customer is quite happy because the cost has come down very, very drastically. So this is what we were talking about. From Industry 4.0, when we say Industry 4.0, 3D printing is not going to do everything, but it is going to help achieving the targets. Now, from Visualize, we have got HP Redington Center of Excellence, where we have got facilities. I have explained you earlier also. If you have got any kind of, because currently you don't have the facilities here, so you can always contact with us. We can help you out generating the parts for you. If at all it's a smaller amount, we will just do it free of cost for you as a kind of gesture or CSR or whatever you can take it. If the project size is bigger, we will take a material cost from you. So that's what we can do from our Visualize, because Visualize is not a kind of profit-making center. It is just to give awareness in the market. There is something which is available, which can help you out in the industry to smoothline your process, to help you accelerate your process. Now, it comes to our offering for institutions. Basically, AICTE has recommended 9 courses, 9 important emerging technologies in all technical colleges in India, which is virtual reality, which is quite common nowadays. AR, VR, a lot of people are talking about. Cybersecurity, IoT, then 3D printing and designing, quantum computing, robotics, data science, blockchain. These are all very, very popular technologies. And AICT has also recommended these very important things to implement in their colleges. I'm sure you also must have got some kind of recommendation from AICT since you are the institution, right? So here, what we offer, everything, we don't offer everything here from this. We offer IoT things. Then the IoT lab. Basically, IoT labs is basically we will provide hardware, software for your labs, where training material, training courseware will be there, and students will get a certificate with logo of HP, because HP is very aggressively working in this area, IoT things. Industrial robotic also is the same thing, like it is again from HP only. Google Lab, of course, it is from Google. In the introduction slide, I have explained you, like we deal in almost 250 product lines. Google is also one of them. Google Labs, Data Science Labs, and Smart Class, and virtual reality. Virtual reality is again from HP. So these are the offerings we have, and of course, 3D printer from HP again. And we have got the design softwares. We have got a tie-up with PC. We have got tie-up with Autodesk. We have got a tie-up with Altair, Materialize, many companies. These are the offerings we have as of now for the institution. We can bundle. We can, if you have got a plan to go for in-house putting up the labs or something of that kind, we have the offers for institutions. And yeah, this is what I can say. I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, it is open for questions now. Yeah, over to you now.
Anybody having any query, please go ahead.
Yeah, Deepak Saini, you can unmute and you can ask the question.
Okay, I think
Deepak, if you have any query, please go ahead and ask. Unmute yourself and ask. You are not properly audible. You can put your query in the chat box so that we can ask on your behalf.
there is one. I'm able to see the chat box now. Mr.
Santanu Datta is asking that they want to make COE in their institute with you, and they want to know the procedure. So I think they can directly contact you over your contact details. Contact details are provided.
Okay. So,
Deepak Saini, his query is, what is the scope of collaboration with industry institute and for student projects? I think Mukesh have already clearly explained in his presentation. If you want further, Vinod or Mukesh, you can add to that.
Yeah, I have already given the kind of indication. I have already given the indications, like we are open for it. Anyway, we do a lot of projects with the students also. The students, we do a lot of projects actually.
So we are open for it, sir. We can discuss one-on-one.
Yeah. Exactly. I am Rashmi Mahapatra from Hindalco Industries Limited. So the session was very nice. Sir. So we want to collaborate and some project work. So kindly share this PPT and contact details. It will be helpful to us. Thank you.
Okay, sir. We will what we will do. the contact details are on the last page of the slides. So please note down. And we request you to put a mail to us. So we will talk to you personally and reply to all your queries, sir. Please.
I will just put it back that slide. You can take down. You can note down our coordinates, because it's very difficult. I think it's not fair. It's not fair to ask you at this point of time your contact detail. So
exactly, I hope we will receive all the recorded version. Also contact details. So
sure.
No issue.
The recorded version will be provided for you. So
a very great session for collaboration with the academic and industry. That is very nice session today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any other question on this?
Multiple questions have come, okay, sir. So again, actually, Santanu Kumar Datta sir has something. So actually, Santanu sir, if you're listening to us, we request you to please drop us a mail or get in touch with the VSSUT team so that they can align you to us, and we will take your queries one-on-one on setting up the COE.
Yes, definitely.
So,
Mukesh and Vinod, I have joined. This is Janardhan here.
Jana, very good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Hello.
Mr. Jana is basically our head of the department. He is taking care of nationally. He sits in Chennai in our head office.
Hello, Mr. Jana, and welcome to our
Mahatma sir and Mishra sir and all the respective faculty members of VSSUT. Mr. Venkat Janardhan, who is head of our business, he has joined. So, Jana sir, if you can put a few words, please.
Yeah, fine. I think you have completed your presentation, Mukesh.
From my side, it's done.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Vinod and Mukesh. So good afternoon to all, sir. My name is Janardhan. I head this 3D business for Redington, and I am working with Mukesh and Vinod for the last. I am there in Redington for the last 10 years, and there with Mukesh and Vinod for the last 8 years or so. The objective of this presentation, what we have done completely, is basically speaking about how the transformation of 3D printing has happened over the years from a prototyping concept to a digital manufacturing concept. So I think they have covered upon all the topics, which basically tell you the reason why we have this statement beginning made now, because 3D printing is now it's not seen as just a prototyping tool. It is basically getting into the manufacturing arena. And one more key thing is that this technology is not going to replace your existing manufacturing technologies, but it is going to be one of your tool for the manufacturing process. So probably if you open your toolbox, this might be one of the accessories which is available for you for the manufacturing. So if you have any specific questions, anything, you can ask any one of us. We will be able to answer to your questions. Yeah, each one of you can unmute and ask the questions if you have any.
Hello, Mr. Jana. I am Dr. Mahapatra from VSSUT. Actually, we had a query session for last 10 to 15 minutes, and Mr. Mukesh and Vinod, they have already answered to the queries.
Okay.
So I don't think there will be they are having any query further. So we can conclude now, I think. Participants, if you have any query, please rise now. You can unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay. Mukesh sir, Jana sir, and Vinod, we have Vijay. You have any query?
Hello. Yes, sir. Actually, from this time I have some connection issues, so I have wrote it down in the chat box.
Okay. Yes. Actually, Vijay is asking to provide any example or case study on materials development done at your company, custom material.
Okay, basically, can I answer to that question?
Sure, sure, please.
Yeah, fine. See, basically, if you look at historically, if you look at the 3D printing technologies, because of the complexity in manufacturing, because of the way or the technology which each one of us are adopting, they have certain specifications and chemical components which is required basically to drive that manufacturing process to keep the quality of the parts. So if you look at most of them are operating with a proprietary material. So for example, if you look at a typical SLS technology, if you just put any powder, we will not be able to fuse it because the temperature at which the fusion happens might be totally different from one powder to another. And when the shrinkage factors might be different. So like this, there are number of components which really controls the quality of the parts and the dimensional accuracy of the parts, depending upon the property of the material what we are using. And one more key important factor is the spreadability of the material. So like this, there are multiple factors about this. So most of these technologies were using proprietary materials. So what HP basically has done it to make it as a production-ready machine is that they have allowed certain partners to do that, and anybody can be a partner to HP with the business in this case. And what they are providing is basically they provide a kit and support to develop new materials. And once that material is being completed, and if the qualities and everything is being tested by the organization who is going for it, they can always send across this thing to HP, and HP can certify that material, and you can commercialize that material. That is the way HP is driving this material market as a whole. So if you look at partners of HP, most of the partners are basically the key material manufacturers who manufacture plastic materials for injection molding and other manufacturing processes like Lubrisols, BASF, that kind of companies are associated with HP now for commercialization of the material for HP 3D printers. Similarly, anybody, if you want to do that exercise, you can get associated with HP, and HP will give you directions how to do that, and you will be able to find out the way to develop new products. And it can, if you want, you can get it certified by HP to commercialize it. Did I answer to your question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I must
So
mention here, Vijay is our student. He was doing his master's here, and he implemented the 3D printer that you have provided to our department, and currently he is pursuing his PhD in IIT Kharagpur in the same domain. So in future, I think he will be in touch with you for any query.
Yeah.
Any other query from participants? Yes, sir, I know that. Means we have got lot of sort of support from your end. So I know definitely Vijay will be getting much more benefit from your end. Any other query, participants?
Sir, kindly retype the feedback link once again in the chat box.
Okay, that will be provided. That will be provided. Any other query related to this particular presentation?
Sir, good evening, sir. My name is Karthik Anand from Hyderabad.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a few, only one question. Like, is there any like a portable metal 3D printer available in the market? Portable printers, like polymer-based FDM. Can we have any portable metal 3D printers, sir?
Yeah, I think to answer to that question, I think when you're speaking about metal 3D printing, you can understand the complexity of metal printing, mainly because almost all the metals and alloys might be of a very high temperature of melting. There are chances that we may need the shrinkage of each and every material is totally different. So, and during when you're really heating a powder and accumulating that much of heat on certain areas where the fusing happens, what happens is most of the time you can see that there might be chance of explosions and everything. So if you look at machines are available, so I cannot say that it is be as simple as your FDM machine. There are machines available from various manufacturers for different small sizes. Might not be a desktop printer because most of these types of metal printers may need some sort of argon gas or something of that kind to protect and avoid oxidization within the chamber and to avoid this kind of when they handle the high temperature. So it might be as a simple desktop machine as you see it in a FDM, because FDM the technology is so simple that if you have a tool path, if you can define a tool path, and if you have something to really extrude, you can have a FDM machine made out of it. But a metal machine will not be that easy to really manufacture. But if you, for your information, if you look at, I think one of the Indian companies in Bangalore, with association for few more other research organizations, has done and developed an indigenous machine in India. I think they started commercializing it, and this information will be widespread available with all of you. I think Vinod also can provide you some information about it, because we have some details about that machine. Probably that is one of the simplest of the machines available today in the market. So I think we can provide you more details, but it will not be as a desktop as a FDM machine. That's for sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so let us conclude now. Thank you, Venkat sir. Thank you, Mukesh sir. We have with us Dr. Kamal Pal, our head of the department. So may I request Dr. Pal to thank both the speakers, please, sir.
Hello, sir. I'm hearable. Hello, sir.
Hi, sir. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Actually, I go to your a very nice lecture, and I think it will highly help for the researchers. And this new technology, rapid prototyping, and 3D printing, and the additive technology, this particular Industry 4 concept is highly helpful for the researcher. And on behalf of the production engineering department, I thankful to you that within very short time you are accepting our invitation. And also I thankful to Ankorji for a nice interaction of the case study, industrial case study, because most of our cases, our students, our research scholars are highly interested for case study oriented lecture. So it's very interesting, and the students are very happy with this, because I have already got most of the feedbacks. Most of our favorable students, they are giving very excellent feedback there. This type of presentations that will continue the next coming future. Thank you, sir, for your. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry that I wanted to join a little early, but I was tied up because of some other meetings just scheduled prior to this. I'm sorry for it. I think thanks Mukesh and Vinod for getting it done in a quick short notice. Thanks Vinod and Mukesh.
Sir, anyway, if you have got any query, you have got our email ID, you have got our coordinates. You please send your queries. If we have to do some kind of benchmarking, if your student has got some kind of small projects, we are open for it.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Please